Right, we're live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Fresh Money. Pao, how are you doing?
I'm doing all right, Jed. It's another Monday. Back to work. Back to the podcast.
Yeah, back to the podcast, back to building what we're doing in PDAX. But it's great to see that the markets are turning bullish. Like everything's going up. So it's very nice to see all those green again.
Happy Lunar New Year, by the way.
Oh yes, happy Lunar
Yeah.
New Year to everyone.
Welcome to the year of the rabbit.
So, guys, unfortunately, we don't have a sharing contest right now, but please feel free to share this episode to your friends and family because it's going to be a very interesting conversation with our guest today. So, our guest today is a friendly whale. He's a collector and a community member of one of the most popular NFT collections. So, in this episode, we'll be talking about his story, how he identified Base C, his experience with the community development he's excited for, and many more. So, this will be a good conversation, pal. So, without further ado, let's all welcome NFT Prince. Hey,
Hello.
Prince.
Hey
Hi,
guys.
Prince. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you as well.
Glad you could make it today.
Mhm.
So, before we pick your brain on the world of NFTs and know more about the basic community, we want to hear your story before crypto. So, if you can kindly share more about that.
Yeah, so I guess before I got into like fully into crypto, like I guess even as a teenager, like I was always an entrepreneur. So, I definitely took like a different route than what most people would. Like I did not like school and my parents hated me for it because like I went to college and then I did university, but I never finished university because like on the side I was always doing like entrepreneur stuff like on my own. And like I was into e-commerce, web design, and just always trying to make ways to like make passive income for myself because I always knew I just never wanted to work for anybody, like
Mhm.
but for myself, right? So like yeah, so I was always an entrepreneur at heart. I went to school for biomedical engineering, which I never finished. And like, yeah, my parents did not like it. And then I got into crypto and, it was life changing from there once I got into crypto.
So you're just to be clear, like you were raised by Filipino parents in Canada. Is that
Yeah.
correct?
So yeah, my parents, they're Filipino. They were born here in the Philippines. And my dad came to Canada, I believe in the 90s. And then he brought us over early 2000s. And then I pretty much grew up there because I got there when I was a kid.
Oh, okay, okay. So very traditional upbringing in a foreign country.
Yeah.
And yet, you chose the more untraditional path in the entrepreneurial side.
Yeah, it was weird because, I definitely still considered, finishing school because my parents kept forcing me to, and I just kept telling them to give me more time. And
Even
yeah,
until
so,
now, they're still telling you to finish.
well, no, definitely not now. Like
Okay.
see how, how well I've done for myself. So, I mean, I brought them here to the Philippines for the holidays. So, they're very happy about that. And
Well,
yeah, so I started crypto actually. Well, I got into crypto in 2017, but that at that time that was like the peak of crypto at that time, and I bought everything at the top, and everything just crashed for a couple of years, and then but
that's
at that
really
time, I
That's
guess
really such a common story, right? Like
yeah,
Yeah.
for
everybody
sure.
jumps into crypto at the top and then
Or when
experiences the
or when
first
there's a
crash.
bull run, like that's when
Yeah.
most people try to hop in because that's when it makes the news and stuff. But yeah, I guess a couple of years later, 2020 during the pandemic, I started, you know, getting back into it a bit. And then I guess beginning of 2021, I got into NBA Top Shot. So
Mm.
I guess, those were kind of my first NFTs, but I don't know if a lot of people don't really call them NFTs, but but then getting into NBA Top Shot, I was following a whole bunch of like top shot people on Twitter, and a lot of them talked about crypto and Web3, and so I started diving more deep into it. And actually, believe it or not, I started in 2021 with $100. I
Oh
bought,
wow.
yeah,
Wow.
I bought Shiba Inu in February when like nobody knew about it. It was just like during the pandemic, like
How did
I
you hear
was
about it then?
yeah. So yeah, it was during the pandemic, and I didn't have a job at that time, and
Yeah.
I was in a lot of debt from like all my entrepreneur stuff that I did. And so I had like $100 in crypto, that was just in my wallet. And I was just like, I'm just gonna try to buy the cheapest crypto possible and like look back in a year. And then, yeah, I think a couple of days after I bought it, Elon Musk tweeted, "I want a Shiba Inu." And then it was already like,
Oh
it was
no.
already like 3x, 5x. And the reason why, like, I never took it out because usually, I mean, when people get 3x or 5x, that's a good trade for them.
Yeah.
But I had actually spent everything I had. So it was on the Ethereum network. So I had spent everything I had buying it. Like, I actually didn't have gas fees to convert it back.
Oh,
So luckily, I was able to, ride it to the top. And in a couple months, I think like less than 2 months, it turned six figures. So it was a
wow.
yeah, it went
Wow.
from $100 to over 100K. So that, like, that was really, it was really big. It was a big jackpot for me.
Sounds like you've been very lucky with your crypto journey so far. I mean, you went from $100 to your name to bringing your folks to the
See.
Philippines.
Right. Yeah, after that jackpot, like I paid off my debt, and then that's initially when I started getting more into NFTs. My first, I guess, NFTs on the blockchain was the Bored Ape Yacht Club, and
Yeah, those were the first ones you
Those were your
bought that
first.
besides Top Shot.
besides Top Shot, yeah. So Bored Ape Yacht Club,
Were
and
you there for the Were you there for the mint?
I was there for the mint. So like I said, I was following a whole bunch of Top Shot people on Twitter, and that I did not mint, but it was like that weekend that all of them were talking about it, and they all started using it as their profile pictures, and then I got in 3 days after, so it's still pretty affordable. I think my first board ape I bought for 800 USD. So
800 USD.
Damn.
yeah,
Did you
and
ever think, like, in the moment that you were buying it, like, what am I even doing?
Yeah.
Why is
well,
this
so
JPEG
you know,
worth $800?
$800.
right. So I mean, so the reason why I bought it was because I love the idea that they gave us the IP rights, so you could do whatever you want with the image. You can license it out to companies and brands. So the first day I bought my first board ape, I was already like doing custom designs with it, and like showing it on Twitter what I did to, and then like other board apes, were kind of doing the same thing, and then like a community was kind of forming, and I really like that. And the first day I bought two I bought two board apes at that time. The second one I bought for was for 1 ETH. It was funny because I think the floor was like point 0.2, and I had no clue about floor price, and I was just buying apes that I thought like look cool at that time. I probably could have had like many more apes. I had 9 board apes at one point, so
Wow.
I have
Wow.
two left. But yeah,
Well, I
so
mean, buy what you like also, right? That's a big factor
right,
with the
yeah,
whole
yeah.
NFT
Buy what you
culture.
like.
I find
So
it interesting that, like, right away you're already making designs based on the ape. I mean, entrepreneur at heart, huh?
yeah,
Do you still have those, like, designs? Like, did you sketch it out, throw it on Photoshop? What was your How did you do
yeah.
it?
They're definitely on Twitter. So I mean, but you'd have to scroll back to like when the board apes first started. But yeah, I was just I would put like my ape on like a space background, and I was actually trying to build a story around like my ape at that time. So I was just like putting like custom background behind it and stuff.
What story were you going for your ape?
I guess like I at that time I had no clue. I was just like I was just kind of introducing my board ape to like the community, I guess. So I never really like finished the story, but it was that's what I really liked about it, the fact that you could do whatever you want with your board ape.
Right, right.
Did you end up making any kind of project like that, like an
Mhm.
entrepreneurial project with the Bored Ape community?
Um, I wouldn't say I've like made my own, but I've definitely helped like a couple like I guess board ape based projects. Um, I advised for a couple projects, so and then companies and brands that are like board ape related. That I've used my IP for a lot of things. So
Oh, cool, cool, cool. So
that's stuff I did with them.
you've done the licensing deals.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like, especially in the bear market, that's what a lot of people have been doing. Like, making your board ape work for you, and instead of just letting it sit there.
Got it. So, what's it like being part of the Ape community? Like, what happens behind the closed doors of the clubhouse?
Yeah, I mean, I love being, part of the board ape. I mean, I guess that's why I'm so bullish on them because, I attend all the board ape events in America, and then, I'm the founder of Board Club Canada, so I've hosted many events all over Canada, and like, my favorite thing about Web3 is, going to these events and meeting people, because everybody has their own story, how they got into crypto, how when they got their board apes, and how life changing it was for a lot of these people to get into the board apes. So it's that's what I love about it too, like just hear everybody's stories.
I mean, there must be so many. Anything that you'd like to share, like from other people's stories? Well,
Like anything
um
stood out?
well, I mean, like, I guess like it's cool that some of the big whales still own like 400 to I think it was Francis who bought like 1,000.
wow.
Those guys was just crazy. But yeah, the reason why I love going to these events, because you never know who you're gonna meet, and I feel like Web3 is the only space where you could be talking to a millionaire and not even know about it. I've met yeah, I've definitely met a lot of like cool people, and that I've gotten really close with. There was one time where this guy who he was negotiating trying to buy one of my board apes at the time.
Mm.
It was actually the rarest board ape I had. It had a diamond grill. So that, it was a really rare trait, and we spent a whole day negotiating, and eventually, like he offered me like a six-figure offer, and it was my first ever six-figure offer, over 100 grand, and I'd never
Wow.
seen that much money before, and I took it. I took it at that time, and but off of that transaction, like what he told me like he kept messaging me after, because that was his first ever NFT, which is crazy because he
Wow,
spent,
six figure
yeah,
right
on
away.
his on his first NFT. And he told me he like all his like rich friends were just buying these board apes and flipping them and stuff, and he wanted to get into it. So, and but yeah, right after, since that was his first NFT, he didn't really know what he was doing with it, or what other projects he could buy. And so yeah, he kept messaging me, asking me for advice and tips, and you know I was helping him out. I'm the friendly whale, like, so I helped him out, and we became really good friends. And he does commercial real estate, and he's from Houston, Texas, and like he even flew me out one time to Houston, and put me in
Wow.
a 5-star hotel. Like showed me around, and like took me out. This like he had his own personal driver and stuff, and yeah, it was just like these experiences, like just because we're part of the community, and like I said, like you never know like the people you're gonna meet in this space.
That's really interesting what kind of network becomes available to you when you're in that particular club, right?
Mhm.
Right, yeah.
Did you interact with any celebrities? Because I know the Bay community attracted some celebrities as well. So I'm curious if you did.
Yeah, I've had Josh Hart, NBA player. He's
Oh,
been in
nice.
He was asking about one of my board ape dogs at one time, but he was a low baller, so I just I just said it to him. um,
Yaman, yaman.
and yeah, I met like Steve Aoki through like some events, like NFT events. Beeple, I've met Beeple as well.
Cool.
Um, I guess a lot like most of them, most of the big people in the NFT space and in the board ape community as well.
Are they all ape holders as well, or do they just find their way to the events as like
Yeah,
celebrity?
yeah, they're definitely all ape holders.
I know Steve Aoki, and I know Steve Aoki has his own like project as well as Beeple. Obviously, has so many interesting projects that they do.
Yeah, I love Steve Aoki because he reminds me of like just he's just like a regular DJ, but he's a big time DJ, and he likes to gamble on digital pictures as well, and he likes to show off his NFTs, which is cool.
Yeah, I've heard him on some interviews talking about his digital collection and what his own project is trying to do, and he really seems to be pushing the boundaries of what it can be done. I think he was explaining that if you level up if you buy his NFT and level it up to max level, you get to collab with him in the studio. It's like what?
That's
Yeah.
Okay,
crazy.
make a song with Steve Aoki. Why not?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like celebrities. If you ever want to buy like a celebrity project, you want to buy from celebrities who are in the space and
Mhm.
that are not just getting into this space, because those are the people with experience. They actually know what they're doing. They've been part of different communities. They know how to build communities, and so yeah, I love Steve Aoki, and uh, yeah, I love what he does for the space.
So
Cool.
since it's a bear market right now, how engaged and active is the board ape community relative compared to the bull market?
I mean, I think it's especially right now because they just had a game come out, so you
Dookie
know
Dash.
Wiki Dash, yes. So I've been playing it for the past couple of days. Haven't got a good score, but I'm up there. But so yeah, I mean, if you just take a look at the volume in the market, always Bored Ape projects are at the top. The mutants, the Bored Apes, the even the dogs, and the sewer passes. The volume that the sewer passes have done in the past couple of days is just insane. I think off of royalties alone, like the Bored Apes, they're expected to make like over 10 million off of royalties alone
Woo.
Wow.
in like the next 2 weeks. So
In the next 2 weeks alone.
yeah, because the game ends in about 2 weeks. So,
I see. I see.
so
So how
yeah,
does the game work, the Dookie Dash?
yeah. I mean, it kind of reminds people of Temple Run. You just kind of
Temporal.
like you're running and you're just dodging stuff, and you can buy boost as well to like power up, I guess, to get more score. So which you have to spend an ape coin. The price of ape coin has been going up the past couple
Yeah.
days as well. It almost got to $6 USD like 2 days ago. But and
Interesting.
the board apes, they also came out with the staking in December, end of December. So I think most board apes are, you know, and even mutants, they're staking what they have, and we're all earning passive income, and because we're part of the community.
Interesting. So what other developments moving forward can the board ape community look forward to? Like,
Yeah, I mean, so they have a roadmap that they have, and right now, so they have, I guess they're more focused on the game, and because right now after the game finishes, like even none of us know like what we get. Um, so you can buy a sewer pass and then you could play, and then there's a reveal happening. I think mid-February sometime,
And
and
these are projects internal to Yuga Labs.
yeah, it's based off of like Bored Ape. So you're the only way to get a sewer pass is, I guess right now it's if the only way is to buy it in the secondary market. But if you had a Bored Ape or a mutant, you were able to claim a sewer pass, and right away in secondary, they were yeah 2 ETH for the cheapest. So there's 4 tiers for the sewer passes, and the lowest tiers were already 2 ETH. And based on what you had, like if you had a board ape, you got a tier 3, but if you paired like a dog with a board ape, you got a tier 4. So, and I think tier 4s right now are going for around, I, I would say 6 ETH or 5.5 to 6 ETH. So I mean, it's
Pretty
crazy
good.
that the gift that just keeps giving.
Yeah. So I'm curious, like, what's the relationship like between Yuga Labs and the Bored Ape community? I mean, there must be like a lot of interaction between the two. But
Yeah,
while Yuga Labs has given commercial rights to you guys, like obviously, I mean, they still own like the copyright of the brand itself, right? So,
yeah,
like, how does the community and the company interact?
right. So board apes, they will. So I mean, last year they had a fest, and even the year before there was a smaller a fest. So they've already had two a fests where the holders can come and meet other holders. And last year's a fest was insane. It was a 4-day event in New York City.
Ooh.
We had like lots of celebrities perform. Future, Lil Wayne, Eminem, Snoop Dogg, a lot of big time artists that were performing for us. And the only way you could come to the event was if you had a board ape or a mutant. So, that's, and during I also they also had an event during Art Basel in Miami.
Hmm.
And during these events,
And
during
these
these
are
events,
events that Yuga Labs themselves stage, right, for the
yeah,
community. Is
yeah,
that correct? Okay.
official board ape events. So at these events, like you'll see the founders just hanging out with everybody. And they, like, I've had the opportunity to talk to them as well. And they really take the time to talk to every single individual that they meet, which is, I feel like, which is really cool. Because like we want to have a chance to like go up to like Mark Zuckerberg or Elon Musk and just
Mm,
have a conversation with them. So
yeah.
I love that the founders are very, like, they want to be interactive with the community.
That's cool.
Fascinating. So I'm curious, Prince. To those people who don't have a board ape NFT, do you think the current floor price of 70 is justified for to have access to that community and any benefits that it comes with?
I mean, if you have the money, I mean, if you don't, I wouldn't recommend it. But if you do have capital, definitely, it's the bear market. And I feel like now's the best time to buy. Because it's like, imagine buying like Facebook stocks or like Tesla stocks when they were brand new, right? You those are like the types of companies you want to invest in. Because especially Yuga Labs, because they're already established. And within 1 year they're a $4 billion company. And I guess most people would say they're the top company in Web3 right now. And you know the, I guess for me, those are the types of people or brands, companies I would invest in. The ones who are already established, have a big community, have a big following. you, I feel like you can't go wrong with it. But I mean, yeah, for sure, if you can't afford a board ape, there's the mutants as well.
Hmm.
And right now there's the sewer pass, which is a little under 2 ETH. And like I said, we still don't know what we get with for the reveal. People are saying we get like mecha dogs or mecha apes. So there's still
I think
lower
it's worth.
stakes,
I think it's worth saying to everybody listening, this is not financial advice.
Yes.
financial
Just
advice.
one opinion from
Yes,
BAYC whale.
BAYC Maxi. Yeah,
But I do agree that it's worth looking mostly into communities and companies that have a proven track record of delivering on product.
right,
Uh, Price is determined by the market writ large.
right.
Interesting.
So,
Good.
so you founded the Board Club Canada, right?
Yes, yeah.
What
So
made you what made you decide to create like a little community around your community?
right. So I think Board Ape Canada or Board Club Canada was actually I would say the one of the very first I guess club within the club. I started it in the first month of the Board Apes coming out. So they I believe they minted out like May 1st, and I started the I guess the Discord in I think May 28 or 27. So within the first month I had already started the group, and the reason why I started it was because like I wanted to meet more people who were into NFTs, and also who were into the Bored Apes. And because I couldn't talk to my like normie friends about NFTs. Like, they all thought I was crazy for
Yeah.
buying digital pictures, and so that's the reason why I started it. The group was initially based in Toronto, so it was just like I just wanted to meet like locals that's in my city who were into the same stuff that I was in. And eventually like we expanded to the province of Ontario, and then uh, eventually we just did all of Canada.
How many people are in the Board Club Canada these days?
There is over 250 people in our Discord. It's a very active Discord, and everybody has like a home Discord, and
Right. Yeah.
a lot of
Yeah.
us that's our home Discord. We would everybody says GM there every
I
morning.
guess that's also like a manageable size for a community, right? Like once you
Yeah,
go to like thousands, it's a bit like how do you know everybody?
right.
But
Yeah, yeah,
200, you can kind of be familiar with
yeah. It's definitely
with
we
the
try to
handles.
make it as we give everybody roles based on like where they're from in Canada, so it's easy to tell like where someone is from based on like the color of their name.
Hmm.
And it's a very active group. We have like a lot of channels like that'll just help everybody out. You can ask any questions, and somebody will have an answer. We have people from all like careers, from like real estate to like taxes, and everything. Yeah.
So you've had in-person meetups with the community already, I would assume.
Yeah, we've had like many meetups. We've actually had like two meetups that's where we try to invite everybody from Canada, which is funny because even the Bored Apes, they've only had like two Ape Fests, and we've had we have our third one coming up, I guess, this year. So it's I you know we were I guess we were pretty early. And like I host we try to have like events in different cities every month. So I have one planned for like, even if when I'm in the Philippines, like I still try to plan for them to meet up. There's a
Yeah.
meetup in about a week, or on Friday in Toronto. So a whole bunch of them's gonna meet up and just network and connect.
What kind of meetups do you guys do? Is it like at the bar, a coffee shop? Do you guys rent out a small ballroom? What's the what do you guys do?
Most of them are just like dinner based. So like just a big group of people having dinner and like networking and connecting. And then we'll have like our annual meetups in Toronto, where it's usually hosted in like a big conference. So last year we had it during ETH Toronto, where like Vitalik's always a speaker there. And yeah, so like it was like a big outdoor venue, and they gave us our own like booth, like our own cabana. And
Oh wow.
Nice.
it's funny, it was like the most packed because everybody wanted to come and like meet us and talk to us, and like show their projects and and stuff.
They're like the popular kids in that event.
I mean, yeah, it was Ethereum was made in Toronto, so it's really
Oh,
big. It's really big over there, and it's being the biggest
Homegrown.
Ethereum project.
Yeah,
Everybody
yeah.
wanted to meet us.
cool.
Cool. How big are the Board Club Canada meetups? Like say a big group having dinner, what's 20, 30 people?
About 20 to 30 people. It depends on like what city. So the biggest cities where our members are from is in Toronto and Montreal. I've had the opportunity to go to Vancouver and help host a meetup is there as well, and not that many people over there, so it was a much smaller one, like about 10
Interesting.
people. But yeah, yeah, 10, 20, 30 people based on the type of event. Like our bigger ones, we can get about like over 50 people, and you know, we had during NFT NYC during A-Fest. That's when A-Fest was held. We held our own meetup, our Board Club Canada meetup over there as well, and we had about 40 people come. So it's cool because we're all from Canada coming to the US to meet up.
Yeah. Have you met up with like the Board Ape Club of the Philippines, if there is one?
There's a big one over here. It's
Yeah,
there's
Basicada, I think.
yeah. So I'm also part of that group because I'm Filipino, and so yeah, I came here. The reason why I came here like mid-December was so I could come to their holiday meetup, and
Ah,
that group is very very active. They have meetups every month.
Wow.
Um, we have one in 2 days with Board and Hungry and Anatoys, and then they
oh,
have a monthly meetup on the 27th. So a couple events coming up within the next week with those guys.
it must be fun networking with that kind of community here, huh?
Oh yeah, definitely. Because like I said, you never know who you're gonna meet. Their stories and where they came from, especially here in the Philippines, which is those guys have made like big money over here. So, and it's crazy that I've talked to some of them, and some of them are still like working their like 9 to 5 jobs, and if I had like multiple apes, I wouldn't even be working over here.
I mean, that's what. Yeah, so right now, what you're doing is like full-time Web3 things, right? Like your
Yeah.
job is metaverse.
Yeah, pretty much. In the past year, I've just been doing a lot of traveling. Like I said, I go to a lot of conferences and like board ape events, and networking, meeting people. Like some of the events I go to, I'm able to meet people who are trying to use board apes for IP licensing. So you know, yeah, you just never know who you're gonna meet at these events.
So I mean, obviously you're very active with the Bored Ape community, but I wanted to ask about what about other NFT projects? Like, are you active or consulting with any of the any others?
I'm a Yuga Maxi, so not really, but I definitely buy a lot of other projects. Cool Cats, Doodles is what I'd say my second favorite project.
Hmm.
I love the art of Doodles, the community that they have. Um, yeah, and a lot of the bigger projects, they'll have their own events as well during these big conferences in North America. So the fact that I hold NFTs from multiple projects, I'm able to go to multiple events, and not just Bored Ape base. I can go to a Doodles event. Even I have friends who hold other projects as well, so they can take me as a plus one to a Suki event, Cool Cats event. So yeah, I love that the big projects have their own events as well.
Any like cool standout on ground stuff that you've been to?
I mean, I would say the best one was probably last year's A Fest, because we had like big time celebrities perform
Yeah.
for us, and it was cool that it wasn't open to the public, so you're able to meet people who you've been interacting with for the past year, and meeting them for the first time. And it's funny because we're all on the internet, and
Yeah.
usually you don't know what people look like. So what a lot of people did was they brought stickers to put on, or post it on like walls and stuff, and that's how you're able to find out who was who, which is cool.
And at the same time you're getting to watch like Snoop Dogg and an audience of like 1,000 people, right?
Yeah, right. And
Yeah.
that one thing I loved about like Board Club Canada was the fact that we had that group already established, and people have been connecting for the past year. You even if you came by yourself, it didn't feel like it, because you had friends that you already know, but you just, I guess, didn't know what they look like. But after that time, A-Fest was actually, I would say, the first time that most of the Canadians got together. And so a lot of us like met each other for the first time, and it was cool. Like during the event, that some of them would even hang out with each other like throughout the whole 4 days. Like we'd all meet up, and I was able to go to all 4 days because if you were part of our club, you could just ask in the Discord like who has a extra ticket for this day or that day, and somebody had an extra ticket. So that was like a cool utility for a club.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So um you mentioned that you're a Yuga Maxi, but I'm curious, what do you look at in other NFT projects that you make it worthy to add to your collection?
Right. So I mean, I don't buy NFTs as much now. It's definitely in the bear market.
Mhm.
But back in the day, I would say early last year, when there's a lot of projects coming out, you definitely have to do your research on like what you buy. So definitely look at the team. I definitely, one of the most important thing, like who the founders are and like what their track record is, what their background is. If they already have built cool stuff in the past, or and yeah, so definitely look into the team. And then most projects, they have a roadmap, and so you want to take a look at the roadmap as well. And if they're building cool stuff and that you think you would like, then that's one way to, I guess, gauge it whether you want to buy it or not. And definitely if the project has a lot of like, I guess, before they launch, a lot of hype, I guess. I mean, last year, because right now, right now, I think anything you buy is just gambling. Um, yeah, so I would say right now, if people want to get into NFTs, like I said, definitely get into the projects that are already more established, that have a proven track record that they've done, like that they've done cool stuff already. And I they're, yeah, a lot, I would say a lot of them are, I guess, out of reach, because some of the bigger ones are, I would say, over 5 ETH. But you could definitely find some projects that are still building, that's affordable.
Hmm. Right. So, is there any other smaller collection or project that you're particularly excited about? Like something that's more affordable to the people? Of course, not financial advice.
um well, okay, for me, I usually buy the bigger projects, so I usually don't get into the
Like the blue
smaller
chips.
projects. But there are a lot of cool projects out there that are building. I met some founders a couple of weeks ago. Their project is called Super Cute World, and they were based out of Toronto, so that's how we kind of like got in touch. And I see them active in the space, and always doing Twitter Spaces, and those are the types of communities you want to get involved with. The ones who are building a community, and that's participating in the space, right?
Building a community and participating in the space. I think that's interesting.
Mhm.
Yes.
Probably write that down somewhere.
So, aside from being active, what what makes you say that a community is a good community?
Um, I mean, so I yes, a lot. Every project will have a Discord or a Twitter, and just by seeing how many followers they have, and the interactions that they get on their tweets, or how active their Discords are. That's one way to gauge it as well. And it's cool to see if like founders are also talking with the community, and they're able to answer questions that anybody has. And yeah, again, like if they have a good team, those are the projects you want to get into and invest in, I would say.
So, how do you stay informed with about like the developments and trends in the NFT market, whether it's technology or price?
Yeah, I mean, so for me, it's definitely like my home Discord, the Board Club Canada. Like, they talk about everything there. There are some like major degens who buy everything, and so like, yeah, for my Discord, that's where I get most of my alphas. And then other than that, it's Twitter. Twitter, Twitter is the biggest way to find like projects and connect and network with people. So Twitter, I feel like if you want to be in this space, you definitely need a Twitter because that's where all of us are. And that's where you can just, I feel like you can hop into any Twitter spaces and people will be glad to answer any questions that you have about the space if you're brand new. So that's what I love about Twitter.
Got it. Any Twitter accounts you would recommend for NFT Alpha?
NFT Alpha. Oh,
Hmm.
that's, I wouldn't say any NFT alphas, but the accounts that I would recommend are definitely like the security accounts, because they're the ones exposing like scam projects, or they're giving tips on how to protect yourself in the space. Because yeah, you could be new and you could be buying NFTs, but one click of a wrong link and all your stuff is gone. So that's definitely one of the most important part about like learning about how to be in a space is the security. Because I mean, like setting up a MetaMask and all that stuff, like anybody can learn, but not a lot of people, like, in the back of their heads, they don't have the security part, that they have to worry about. And that's a big part, especially for me, like holding a lot of blue chips. I have to be careful about everything I
Oh, yeah.
everything I click online. So if somebody's gonna send me like a link, like I gotta make sure it's not a bad link, or I'll open it on the computer without my MetaMask and all my other stuff on. So security is definitely like a big part of learning about being in a space.
That's great advice. Security is something to learn while coming in.
Yeah. So
Um,
okay. So the accounts. So Zach XBT.
Yeah, Zach.
Yeah, he's one of the biggest, I guess, guys for security. And there's I think I think Hotshot, NFT Hotshot, I think is his name. Like he does a lot of security stuff as well. And yeah, I mean, there's, I think Cyber, Cybeer. So he does security as well. Like he, or I think he's a hacker, and he actually tried to hack into the board. He tried to hack the Board Ape game just to test their security, and
It's a
you
white
know
hat.
he wasn't able to. And like he was happy for the Board Apes that he wasn't able to do it.
That's good. That's good.
great.
So, um, how do you see the NFTs developing in the future? Or
In the future, I mean, so it's definitely gonna take years for mass adoption to happen. But where I see that coming is when people are buying NFTs and not know they're buying NFTs, and or not using NFTs, right? So like, they'll be like, for example, like concert tickets. Those would be good, utility in the future to be NFTs, because it's digital and you'll forever have a souvenir of the event, like as an NFT. So and I feel like, yeah, you know why I love Top Shot was because they were really good for mass adoption at the time. And not, like I said, not many people call them NFTs. They were just like digital collectibles.
Yeah.
And but the reason why they were good for mass adoption was because you could buy them with your credit card, right? And like you didn't have to go through the whole process of setting up like a MetaMask or buying Ethereum or other crypto to buy it. So that's why I love Top Shot. Like they were really good for mass adoption. And yeah, definitely when people are buying and they don't know that they're using NFTs, is when mass adoption is going to happen.
I think
yeah,
the part of the reason the NFT space is so confusing is because there are so many different ways to implement it, whether it be through utility or through community, or however else. There's just so many different applications.
Yeah, I feel like the utilities NFTs have right now is, you know, most of them see them as just like profile pictures, or
Mm,
people who aren't in the space, they just see them as digital pictures, and they don't understand why we're buying them. But they don't understand like the utilities behind them. Like, for the board apes, they have the staking, they have the game coming out, and all these other things that you can get in the future for them. And you can use your IP rights to make money for yourself, or a lot of people don't understand that you could do all these things just by being part of these communities. And I feel like where utilities is coming or going, I feel like we haven't seen the utilities that will be helpful for mass adoption. So we're still very early. I feel like there will be like new things in the future that's gonna like attract everybody. So, but I think we're definitely not there yet.
Yeah. So this in relation to the question of Seaton Granger now. You mentioned earlier that concert tickets is one possible utility, but what other potential utility for NFTs can help spur mass adoption for this particular technology?
Um, I mean, so you can use NFTs for all sorts of things. So for music, and I even see people trying to use it for real estate already. So definitely there is some other like pathways to be using NFTs. Yeah, imagine buying a house with your crypto, and NFTs. That's the NFT is the contract, and you know I feel like that those are some of the really cool
Yeah, that's a
concepts in the
big one.
future. Yeah.
Especially with how real estate transactions are very painful. Like there's lots of
Right.
documents.
Yeah. A
That'd
lot
be
of
nice to have like
paperwork.
one smart contract to process everything. That'd be like a dream.
it's
Yeah.
where the smart contract meets the legal contract that needs to be merged well together. I don't know if
Yes.
Right.
anybody has quite done it yet, but I really think it's an interesting use case.
Yeah, I've
That's
seen
a
some
big.
stories of like people
Mhm.
selling houses with crypto, and so we're on our way there.
We're on
Yeah,
our
yeah,
way.
yeah. Like I see people like listing it in open sea and then people buying it from there.
Right.
It's interesting.
Right.
But yeah, on our way there. So Pat has a question. So this Patrick Laos. So I doxed your Facebook, Pat. Sorry. But so we answered your first question already. But I think the second one is particularly interesting. So, Prince, do you think NFTs will play a role in the next bull run, just like how DeFi summer sparked the previous one? So, do you think there's gonna be like an NFT, NFT bull market that sparks it?
Yeah, for sure. The bull run, I feel like that's when a lot of newbies hop in, because that's when everybody's making money. So, like again in 2017, that's when a lot of people got into it. But then, during the bull run, and even in 2021, like the NFT bull run, that's when a lot of people were buying NFTs. So when people are making a lot of money, and you see it on the stories everywhere, or on the news, that people are making big money, or doing cool things with NFTs. That's definitely, we gotta wait for the next bull run to for all that to happen.
Yeah, good points. I think NFTs can be the ones that brings mass adoption because I think it's more relatable to people compared to like DeFi or other or speculative investment trading cryptocurrency coins. I think the NFTs would be the one to help mass adoption for Web3 or even cryptocurrency in general.
Yeah.
So that's a good point. Mhm. So before we wrap up, as we're almost reaching the top of the hour, any advice you can give for people who want to make it in crypto? Since you yourself, I would say that someone who made it already.
um Advice I would give is, definitely you want to network with people who are already in the space, and that already has experience, because they can definitely guide you through all the easy stuff, and even help you out with like security, what to watch out for. And I wouldn't recommend it, but they can also give you financial advice. But definitely only, you know if you think that they know what they're really doing, and those are the people you really want to network and interact with, because yeah, they have experience, like they know what they're doing, especially with NFTs. Like you want to talk to people who are buying like projects, and not just watching from the sidelines, right? Like, yeah, even though you guys don't have Bored Apes, you guys know all about it, right? So you know
Mhm.
the people definitely, like, you want to, yeah, talk to more experienced people, and the people who know what's going on in the space.
Got it. So here's a question from one of our viewers, Raf Pakada. So any tips or advice for NFT trading and holding, hodling?
NFT trading. See, I'm not really a good like trader. I usually like buy the top sometimes. And the projects that I am holding are the blue chip projects, and like the more established projects. Those are the ones I buy. But for NFT trading, that's a it's a little bit harder to like navigate, because there are a lot more projects like coming out these days. But there are definitely a lot of tools out there that can help you out. um yeah, I forgot what this one that I used to use, because I don't really trade it anymore right now. But yeah, I mean, definitely. And connecting with other groups, there's a lot of like groups and DAOs that you can like join. And a lot of groups, they will have like collaborations with projects where you can get allow list or whitelist to mint projects. If you think those projects are worth minting, that's one way to get into it. Because especially some of the hype projects, if you're able to get in during the minting, usually they'll be already higher in secondary market right after. And I guess you could flip them for more right away. And definitely, like, for me, I like to gauge the volume in market. So for example, like, just a couple days ago, when the sewer passes for the Bored Apes came out, right away in secondary market they were 2 ETH. And then I think within an hour or two they got down to almost 1 ETH. But if you looked at the total volume, their sales every minute, every couple sales every minute. And those are what you want to watch. If there's a lot of people buying it, and supply and demand, right? Like, I sold one sewer pass right away for 2 ETH, because I like, right as soon as like they came out, because I knew more people were gonna claim, and try to take profits for themselves. And yeah, I believe there was going to be about, or estimated, like 30K sewer passes that was going to come out. So I think already when I sold, there was already like 12,000. So I knew that there would be like so many more that would come out. And then yeah, the price dropped to 1 ETH, because more people were claiming and selling them. And but if you're watching that, and if you saw like the volume, and if you got in at that time when it was already like dipping at that time, that would have been a good time, because they got the next day they were back to 2 ETH. So that already double than what it was like the day before. And just because of the volume, and the people who also wanted to participate in the game.
Yeah, that's a good point. For a particularly illiquid asset class, I think volume is key. And there's so you can have some buyer to dump on. I'm just kidding. These are two. So here's another question from Pat. So any alpha that you can share, or maybe some promising or good NFT projects that you're looking at? I know you mentioned that you're more of a Yuga Maxi earlier and
Yeah,
only blue
I'm
chips,
not
but
I'm
any
not
alpha?
really good with like alpha. Like, don't ask me for alpha, because I get my alpha from other people.
How about from
So
them? Anything you can share? I'm
yeah.
just kidding.
So I mean, like, for example, like in the Filipino Board Ape group, they have one guy who's responsible for like collabs and getting us whitelist and allow lists. So I mean, if you want, you could give him a DM on Twitter. His name is putikbrown.eth on Twitter. So he's really good with the alphas. Like he has some really good alphas, and yeah, who knows? He might get you on like an allow list.
Utik Brown. Quite a
Putik
name.
Yeah.
Putik Brown, got it. And
Brown, yeah.
PM is the key. Yes, sir, Christian. So, any shout outs, friends?
Um, Shout outs. Yeah, I mean, I guess my club, if I would say if I never started like the group, I wouldn't be where I am today because, meeting those people who were into the same thing I was, and definitely at that time, like very early on when like, the first couple months after the board apes came out, I guess they kind of started like the NFT bull run for everybody, and and then a lot of other projects came out, and at that time, you know, there wasn't many projects coming out, so you actually had to know if one was coming out. So there would only be, I would say, one project coming out a week, and since NFT was kind of blowing up at that time, if you were able to mint that project, you knew right away in secondary market it was going to be worth a lot more because that's the only project that everybody was buying at the time. So those were definitely like the degen days, and because of my group we had like a lot of people telling us which project was coming out at the time, and when it was minting. We even like at one point like we had to make a schedule for when all these other projects were coming out, and when they were minting, how much they were minting for. And definitely at that time was I for like in my opinion, like it felt like the gold rush because like any project that you minted right away in secondary, it was worth a lot more. And nowadays you definitely can't do that because
Mhm.
there's projects coming out every day, and you know
Not enough
there's
demand.
yeah, not enough demand, and it's definitely just gambling right now.
All right. As tradition, Prince, this is a question that we asked all our viewers. So far, all our guests. So far, who and what are you most thankful for in your crypto journey?
In my Okay, I would definitely say I guess my parents, because they believed they believed in like that I could do it. And eventually, once at first they didn't understand. I feel like even now they don't really understand what I do because they're a bit older, and but once they seen that I started making money, and I was able to get back to them, that's when they stopped forcing me to like to go back to school, and like you know they seen that I was able to like make a income for myself, and and like help them out. And yeah, I was blessed to bring them back home for the holidays, and they're still here spending time with their families. So that makes me really happy.
Great, great, great conversation, Prince. Thank you so much for accepting our invite. It was great chatting with you, and
Yes.
we hope to see you around.
Yeah, thank you
Thanks
for
for
having
joining
me
us
again.
today.
Thank you.
Great to talk
And
to you, Prince.
Yeah, thank you guys.
have a good one. Great episode, Pao. What were your takeaways?
I just think it's super interesting to talk to somebody who started the crypto journey with $100
Yeah,
and now traveling the world doing full time NFT consultancy. I mean, wow, what a dream, right?
what a
hundred
journey
dollars,
indeed.
Jed. $100.
Yeah, $100. He couldn't even sell his Shiba Inu because he didn't have enough money for the gas fees, which
Oh my
ended up being a
gosh.
blessing for him.
Yeah.
Struck a home
I mean,
run, and now he got a board ape, and now it's like traveling the world, made it, helping out his parents, giving back to community. It's a great story.
there are so many stories within Web3. It's really we know that he was lucky, right? He hit the jackpot. But I mean, I guess if there's any big takeaways, like I think um, it's wise to look at what's up and coming, um, and often you'll hit I don't know, with crypto journeys, often you'll hit lows before you hit highs, right?
Yeah, like what Prince said earlier. He bought the top in 2017 and got lucky in 2020. So I
Yeah,
think another takeaway, Pao, is like there will always be opportunities in crypto,
I
regardless
think that's the
financially or
big
even
one. Yeah,
or meeting new people. Just have to do the work.
you
Those
have to do
opportunities will
the
come.
work. Yeah, that's right. I mean, he got lucky, sure, but he was already there watching the space, right? Like
Yeah.
he was reading what people were saying, he was keeping track of all these things.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, blindly aping into things isn't necessarily going to work for
Aping.
everything. That is the word.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think it's important to stay engaged, even though if like prices aren't going up like the past few months. I think it really pays dividends on staying engaged to see what possible opportunities might come up that may benefit you. Yeah.
Well, I mean, one way to stay update with crypto in general is to continue watching this page, right, Jed?
Yeah, that's one way you can stay up to date with our podcast. We have this weekly every 5 p.m. We interview interesting people in the world of crypto and Web3. So I'm sure it's very interesting to hear their insights. And that's what Prince said. It's important to hear people who are in the space, and that's what Pao and I and other co-hosts will be doing. We'll be interviewing people and picking their brains. Those people who are deep into this industry.
Yeah, and what worth remembering that crypto is so much bigger than just NFTs. I mean, we
Yes,
have DeFi, we have GameFi, we have all these kinds of things that have been built on the platform. So keep watching and keep your eyes on the page. And keep up to date with all the stuff we'll be coming out with this year.
that's right. And we hope that you guys us paid attention because we'll be having this quiz game to reward our viewers who stayed engaged throughout the show.
Ooh, we have a quiz game.
Yes, something we do every weekly to incentivize our viewers to stay up to date or pay attention. So
Ooh,
let
I'm
me
curious.
share my
I'm
screen.
curious to see what questions we have this week.
Right. So to those who are new to our quiz game, so the way it works is that questions will be flashed on the screen and viewers will type 1, 2, 3, or 4 in the comment section for the answer. Note, you just have to type the number only and not the entire answer. So correct answers will have a chance to win 500 pesos worth of crypto of their choice. And first person to answer each question gets the prize. And the mechanics of claiming your prize is simply to take a screenshot as your name is flashed and as the winner is announced and PM our Facebook page. All right. So we'll be having 3 questions as always, and our first question for this week's quiz game is: so which of the following Board Ape Yacht Club is owned by NFT Prince?
Oh, this one's a toughie.
This one's kind of tough, yeah.
We didn't flash it on screen, did we?
Yep. But
Up, up.
the clue is
Everyone
also
seems to get it.
social. Well, a lot of people got it correctly actually. So we are paying
Yeah.
attention to our socials. But the first
Wow.
person to answer this is Mark Chua Perez.
Congratulations,
Congratulations,
Mark.
Mark, for answering it correctly. So take a screenshot and PM our page, and our team will get in touch with you. All right. For our next question, so which of the following was founded by NFT Prince? Is it Basicada, is it Basic Council, Board and Hungry, or Board Club Canada? This one's a bit easier. All right, someone got it correctly. The correct answer for this question is number 4, Board Club Canada. And the first person to answer this is John Emerald Lazo. So congratulations, John Emerald. Just won 500
Congratulations, John
pesos.
Emerald.
So just take a screenshot and PM our page. All right. So the next question is a bit harder because aside from BAC, what other NFT projects does NFT Prince like? I know he mentioned earlier that it's more of a Basie Maxi, but he said he had a second favorite in during our conversation. So what do you think's the answer here, Pao?
I know the answer, but I'm not supposed to give it to our watchers. All right?
Someone got it correctly already.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the correct answer for this one is Doodles. Was that your guess?
Yes, indeed. He did mention Azuki in passing, but he said Doodles was his next favorite project, besides
Yeah,
anything released by Yuga Labs.
that's right. And the first person to get this is Jade Barry Lazo. So congratulations, Jade. Just won 500
Congratulations, Jade
pesos
Barry.
and PM our page. Take a screenshot and PM our page to
Are you
claim your
related
prize.
to John Emerald Lazo?
Actually, that's a good point.
Jade Barry, John Emerald? Yeah.
All right. And that wraps up our episode and quiz game for today. Thank you again, Pao, for joining me today to co host this episode. Always great
Ah,
to chat people with you.
it was my pleasure, Chad. All right, everybody. See you again next week.
See you guys.
Bye.
Bye.